Artists for the Humanities has been in operation for 9 years. We work with military veterans and we do art therapy and mental health counseling. We've served over 3,300 veterans in our state, and I've personally conducted over 550 group sessions. We work with veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse, homelessness, and a variety of other mental health conditions. One of the biggest hurdles we face in doing our work with our veterans is fear. It's the fear that's associated and the terror with post-traumatic stress disorder. The way to reduce someone's fear, to reduce our fear, is to confront it head on. However, this has to be done with great care in a very safe and tranquil environment. That environment, which involves a lot of support, is in group therapy with veterans who are suffering the same kind of issues. We also do it with a facilitator, that is myself, and a mental health professional. I work with a social worker or a psychotherapist, a psychologist, or a peer support specialist. And I don't have a lot of time to speak with you today. That's okay. But I want to touch on a few aspects, and I'm going to show you some pictures of what some veterans have done in our program over the years. But I want to touch on, and this is really important because our program is not an art program. It's not arts and crafts. We don't put somebody in a room, have them sit in a corner, and work on a basket. This is an important treatment modality for people who have suffered trauma. And so the two parts of the brain I want to talk to you about really quickly are called the amygdala and the hippocampus. Think of the amygdala as our brain smoke detector. It's our early warning system. It's what's been keeping us alive and safe since we've been walking upright. The other part of our brain is called the hippocampus. You can think of that part of our brain as our brain's librarian. It takes our short and our long-term memories. Think of our memories as a book, and it puts that book on a shelf. Now, what happens in trauma, and I'm explaining the same thing to you that I explain to our veterans every time I do a session. What happens during trauma, let's say we're going to cross the street. We step into the crosswalk. We're in a 25-mile-per-hour speed zone. We take 3 or 4 steps into that crosswalk. Suddenly we look, and here comes a vehicle 20 yards away bearing down at us at 45 to 50 miles an hour. That is when our smoke detector, our amygdala, takes over. It tells us one of 3 things: freeze, flee, or fight. In a traumatic situation, 80% of people freeze. That is very normal. The librarian in this situation, and this is all going to happen in less than a second because we have to make split-second decisions. Our smoke detector has to save our life. That's what it's there for. The librarian, the hippocampus, wants to help out, but the smoke detector says, you're too slow. No time. I'm taking over. But what happens is that smoke detector short circuits the librarian. So this is where PTSD comes in. That traumatic memory, that moment, stays lodged in that smoke detector. Okay? It never gets to the librarian because the librarian's been short-circuited. So when someone encounters, like a veteran, many of you heard the story around 4th of July, you know, veterans are told not to go around firework displays because it reminds them of artillery. So when that smoke detector, when we encounter something that reminds us of that moment, it could be in a month, it could be in 10 years. What happens? Something we see, smell, taste, a date on the calendar, like Memorial Day or when somebody's buddies were killed, that memory and that smoke detector plays over. It starts up, it's like 2,000 frames on a bad movie, okay? So this is where art therapy can help, combined with other treatment modalities. What we do when we get somebody who doesn't want to talk about something, or maybe they have, we want to build this process of moving that traumatic memory from that smoke detector back into the library. And researchers have found, and I'm not a neuroscientist, this is how I explain this in layman's terms, we can create new pathways so we can gradually move that traumatic memory out of that smoke detector and back into the library. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a cure-all, it's not a magic pill. It doesn't mean that trauma goes away. Of course it won't. That's a significant moment in our lives. We have a lot of significant moments in our lives, but we're trying to reduce the symptoms of PTSD. We are trying to reduce the level of fear so people don't have flashbacks, so they don't experience bad dreams, and we don't want to use, unless it's absolutely necessary, medications, because we have too many medications that are being used. And medications just mask the symptoms. We don't get at the core. That's where CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, equine therapy, having a service dog, going out for a walk, riding your bike, volunteering or something. That's where all this stuff comes in. It has to be part of a program. And for anybody, whether they are a veteran or not, it's a number of different things that people can do in combination. Some things work better than others, but what's a good fit for that person? Anyway, now I want to show you some pictures really quick. These are images that veterans have done in our program over the years. We've been operating since 2009. We work at the Toma VA. We work at Vets Place Central in Milwaukee, up at King. We've had a program here at St. Norbert Abbey in De Pere. Okay, here. I told you it's not an art program. Some of our veterans are talented in a lot of areas. Obviously, this veteran has some artistic talent. This is Joe Q. Public, I will call him. He's a very good guy. He's patriotic. He's all dressed in red, white, and blue. He's well-meaning, but he's misguided because our veteran has drawn himself, but in place of his head, he has put a grenade. And it says tick, tick, tick. Why? Because he's a ticking time bomb. But we don't see this. This is one of the psychological wounds of war. So he says, hey, bro, great to see you, not a scratch on you. Well, a lot of our veterans come back from theater, or they come back from their service, and they may never have been deployed. You can experience trauma in a lot of different ways, but they're hurting inside. That's why I say he's misdirected. You know, the war's over, come on, hang out with us, have a beer. Well, that's not a good thing to do. If we can show our next image, please. And, all right, this was done by a Vietnam veteran. What do we have here? You know, I don't analyze people's pictures. I ask them to tell me because it's their story on their terms. Here we have a Vietnam veteran. He's drawn himself up in the corner. He's firing at something. What is he firing at? Well, it's a flower pot with flowers, but that represents how he reacts to things that are peaceful in most of our lives. He can't handle it. How is he handling it? On each side, he's got some smoking materials, and he's got a beer. He's self-medicating. The radio, the old radio, represents his PTSD. He wishes it would be like a radio that he could turn on and off, but he doesn't. It turns him on and off. He has no control over it, okay? Great picture. Let's move on to the next one. Very common image from our veterans who are deployed in Afghanistan and Iraq. IEDs, improvised explosive devices. This is what is drawn. He's drawn it from his cab. The windshield is cracked. Over on our left, we see a bomb crater, and there's a vehicle in front of him. This could be this is a recurring trauma, a recurring nightmare. We can go on to the next one, please, very quickly. Here is another. This vehicle is called a Buffalo. How do I know? I'm not a veteran. I am a civilian, but the veterans educate me. We have the IED underneath the vehicle. Very stressful situation for anybody who's ridden in a convoy. There is the detonator, and there is the bad guy right next to it, waiting to let that bomb blow. We can move on to the next one. Okay, this was done by a homeless veteran from our program in Milwaukee. It also can be seen as an empowerment piece. I ask veterans to write something on the back of their picture. We call it a narrative. It can be a few words. It can be a sentence or two or some paragraphs. So, dope, there's the crack up there on the top. Dope, crack, self-hate, failure, violent, path shaken, so forth and so on, bad dad. These are things that people need to see, write, facing your demons. So there's our bad dad. What did he write on the back? All of these factors in my life led to my family leaving, and I felt so small I wanted to kill myself. I had chosen dope over my family. I still feel like a failure, but I'm putting my faith in God to help restore my mind, body, and spirit. So this is also acting as an empowerment piece. We can move on to the next. All right, what is this? Well, this is why the narrative is very helpful. So he's entitled this Nameless, Placeless, 2002. The image of the backside of this residential building was a constant for me during my deployment. My team observed the movements of this structure for 8 days. Eventually, we received the okay to provide an early wake-up call and politely remove the occupants. The dozers soon followed. The maze of tunnels beneath the building were our target. We can go on to the next picture. Okay, what is this? This veteran writes, a locked door with no handle on the wall I have hit in life, okay? This is the same veteran because what we do is not a one and done thing. We have to work with people many times to help them. We can go on to the next image, okay, same veteran. After treatment, I have used the tools the VA has given me to begin to open the door in the wall I have hit in my life. There's progress. But in between that month, he's seeing a psychologist, he can see a social worker. We have other programs at the Toma VA Medical Center. I know that Toma's been in the news because there's been a scandal there. I work with a lot of great people. I'm in the front lines with a lot of staff there. It's very important, and our veterans are getting help. This is our program at Vets Place Central Milwaukee, which is located in the Central City. It's across the freeway from Miller Park. The gentleman with the vest on is Ku Wamumbu, Vietnam veteran, peer support specialist. He's also the liaison, the person that I work with during this treatment session, this group session, because he's going to tell the other people that are mental health people at Vets Place Central about what went on. We also see 2 females. Vets Place is exclusively for men, but the 2 women here, the young women, are graduate students in the social work program at Marquette University. So they come down and they are interns, and this ain't grad school. This is the real thing. This is what they're going to see when they go out into the world and work. And we have 2 more pictures here. We can go to the next one. This is my home studio in Appleton. In the background are some pictures I've painted or I'm working on. 2 veterans here. Standing is Dennis Beeson. Dennis is a veteran. He recently passed away a few months ago, lost his battle with cancer. Jim Troxel, Vietnam veteran, saw a lot of combat. He was in a really rough place when he started coming to the Abbey. That's probably going back 6 or 7 years. He's gotten a lot of help. What are they doing? They're working on a painting. We did a big exhibit at the Veterans Museum, Wisconsin Veterans Museum in Madison, ran for a year. 40,000 people saw the exhibit, and we can show the next picture here. There is Dennis. Here is the painting nearly completed. It's a history of Jim's life in Vietnam and his PTSD dragon. And the other individual here is Daryl Johnson. Daryl Johnson is also a Vietnam veteran, a combat veteran. He is one of our board members. And I'd like for him to stand up and just be recognized today. I want you to welcome and recognize one of our veterans. Here's Daryl. That is my story. That's our organization, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. And I thank the Green Bay Packers and the foundation very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.